Hey everyone, what's up? It's Erica again, here with another art video, and today we're going to be discussing how to draw realistic eyes using a simple pencil and really no fancy art supplies at all. In the following time lapse, I'm going to be sharing my personal step-by-step method that I apply when I'm drawing realistic eyes using a pencil. And I'm also going to be sharing the main components of eyes that you should make sure to integrate into your drawings in order to make them look believable. And aside from all that, I'm going to be giving you some key tips that you should make sure to apply whenever you're attempting to draw anything realistically. For all of you that have already been watching my videos for a while, welcome back my friends. I am so happy that you're here with me today. And for all of you new people out there just finding me, I am so glad that you're here as well. Consider subscribing because every single Friday I share art tips, tutorials about drawing and painting, and general encouragement to keep you going in your artistic journey. Also, make sure you click on the little notification bell below the video so that YouTube can inform you whenever I upload a new one, because otherwise you may or may not be informed about it. Let's get into the tutorial, guys. Okay everyone, so let's begin with drawing a pair of realistic eyes. Whenever I'm attempting to draw anything realistic, anything at all, I always make sure to start with a great high-quality photographic reference. For most of my artwork, I use either photographic references or I draw or paint from life. But since this is a beginner-oriented tutorial, I'm going to suggest that you find yourself an excellent photograph to work from. Okay, so having said all that, we're going to move on to step number 2. And before putting pencil to paper, I want you to take a moment to observe your photograph and have a good look at the biggest shapes and lines that make up your eye. When an artist is just starting out drawing eyes, many times he or she leaves out certain elements that are required in order to make an eye look believable. So let's make sure that in our initial pencil sketch, we integrate all of the elements that we need to integrate. As always, I recommend that you start out with a light pencil sketch. For this part, I recommend that you use an HB pencil or a harder lead if you wish. It's very important that when you're drawing a face or any facial feature, you make use of appropriate proportions and distances between the elements. In terms of drawing eyes, you should ensure that the width of one eye could fit between the two eyes. If you leave less space than one eye's width in between your two eyes or more space than that, your drawing may end up looking off at the end. So do help yourself with a ruler, create some guidelines for yourself before actually going ahead and drawing your eye shape. Once you have created your guidelines, you're going to start out by drawing the shape that is formed by the visible part of the eyeball. A few tips when you're drawing the shape of the eye is to use a ruler in order to ensure that the tops of these shapes and the bottom of these shapes are aligned so that you can ensure that there is a symmetry to your eyes, and also make sure to integrate the tear duct in the inner part of your eyes into this initial shape. The tear duct is super important. And one more thing that I highly recommend you do when you're drawing this shape is to observe your reference picture and try to discern if the inner corner of your eye, so where the tear duct is sitting, is actually aligned with the outer corner of your eye, because very frequently the tear duct is going to be lower than the outer corner of your eye, so it's not perfectly aligned horizontally, if that makes any sense. Another very important element that you should make sure to integrate into your initial pencil sketch is the tear line along the bottom of the eyelid. The tear line is always at least partially visible depending on the angle and the perspective that you're viewing the eye at. Next is the crease above the upper eyelid. Just like the tear line, the crease is always going to be at least partially visible no matter what eye you're looking at. Next is the pupil and the iris. The pupil is the small black circle right in the center of the eye, and the iris is the part of the eye that contains color. Usually, the iris is not going to be completely visible, in its entirety in a portrait or an eye drawing. It's usually partially covered by the top or bottom eyelids. Next are your eyebrows. And here I really want you to look at your picture because I see a lot of beginners drawing them either too low or too high up on the forehead. And I want you to make sure that you're drawing this initial sketch at a good, believable distance from your eye shape. Once you're done drawing the pupil and the iris, you want to also draw the small shapes of light reflection that you see within them. These shapes are going to be left completely white or in a very, very light value at the ends, and you want to make sure to protect them since the very beginning. At least as much as you can, because then you're going to have to go back in and erase the graphite that has gotten into them. And this is it in terms of the things that we're going to be drawing right now. Eyelashes are also a very important part of drawing believable eyes, but we're going to be drawing them until the end, and I have a whole set of tips for you about eyelashes later on. What is important and essential at this point with your initial pencil sketch is that you have achieved adequate shapes and effective proportion and location of elements in regards to each other. Once you have achieved those things, we're going to move on to the next step. Step number 4 is going to be to start developing your values and your textures. And this is the most time-consuming part of the entire process. I want you to take it slowly and gradually, and make sure not to press your pencil too hard down on your paper. Before starting, take your time to observe where your lightest and darkest areas in your picture are. Try to pinpoint where your light source is located and be consistent in terms of where you're placing your shadows and your lights. If you're finding it too hard to discern where your highlights, your midtones, and your shadows in your picture are, I recommend 2 things. Either choose a better picture with more visible lights and shadows, or open up your picture in Photoshop or any other photo editing software and create a grayscale picture that you can work with. By desaturating your picture or removing the color from it, you're going to be able to better focus on values. I think this is a very valuable exercise for beginners, and really you should have in mind that values are more important than color when it comes to rendering something realistically. During this part of the process, it's essential to be constantly looking at your picture. Take your time with it, move back and forth, developing your values as much as you have to. By this point, you should be using your softer lead pencils. Try not to press down on your paper so much. And also use your blending stump in order to move your graphite around and create smooth transitions of value. Do your best to develop a good value range. Some areas of your drawing should be almost completely white, and other areas of your drawing should be almost completely black, especially your pupils in this case. Really observe your picture. I see a lot of beginners leave the sclera or the white part of the eyeball completely white, but it's really not completely white. If you look at your picture, you're going to see that there is shadow created by your top eyelid. And also, most of the time, the outer corners of your eye are actually a little bit darker and have more of a grayish value to them, which helps create the sense or the effect of the eyeball being a sphere. Try to stay away from leaving behind any visible thick lines. I know that, for example, when you are drawing an eye, you see the crease line along the top eyelid. But remember that when you're trying to draw something realistically, it's all about the subtleties. So even when it's a line, there are some parts of the line that contain more shadow or are more visible than other parts of the line. So if you notice, I make sure that I don't leave any lines that are completely uniform in terms of thickness from one edge to the other. Also, when I am adding in my eyebrow hairs, you can notice a variety in terms of thickness and values in which I place my little lines in. sometimes I like adding in some values around my eyes, which sort of helps to bring them together and establish the form of the face where the eyes are in. I found it incredibly useful to learn about the anatomical structure of the eye. They are actually located in very deep sockets within the skull. And this, in combination with the fact that they have a protruding nose between them, creates very interesting shadows around the eye. So don't be afraid to take it a step further and add in some shadows wherever you see them in the picture. And finally, we're going to move on to the very last step of your drawing, which is to add in your eyelashes. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but personally, this was the most difficult part of the entire thing for me to get right when I was just starting out drawing eyes. I tended to ruin my eye drawings by creating very cartoony looking eyelashes. I made them very saturated and very curled and just overall not natural. So allow me to share with you what I have learned. Firstly, it's important to keep in mind that eyelashes aren't perfect. They have different sizes. Some of them are shorter than others. Some of them clump together, and in general, there is a varying distance from one to the next. They don't have a specific pattern between them. And also, they go off in different directions depending on the angle and the direction that the eye is looking at. Something else that I have found very helpful is to start light. Make sure that I end up with a nice variety in values in my eyelashes. And also take breaks when you are adding them in to ensure that you're not oversaturating or adding too many eyelashes. Usually, natural eyelashes aren't very saturated at all. If all of your eyelashes are super dark, or you go overboard in terms of the amount of eyelashes that you draw, which is very easy to do, your person, the owner of your eyes, is going to end up looking like he or she is wearing fake eyelashes or a ton of mascara. And you really want to stay away from this, especially if you're drawing males. In terms of the direction of the eyelash curl, the ones in the inner corner of the eye, so those closer to the tear duct, are going to go towards the direction of your nose. The eyelashes in the central part of the eye are going to curl or go forward, and the eyelashes in the outer corner of the eye are going to curl or go outwards, so away from the face. Another characteristic for you to have in mind is that the eyelashes in the inner corner of the eye and the eyelashes along the bottom eyelid are shorter than the others. Drawing your eyelashes may take some practice, so don't get frustrated with yourself and just keep at it. I believe that taking the time to observe your reference pictures and also seeing what eyelashes look like in real life is going to help you a ton. Alright everyone, so that is it in terms of the process of drawing the eye. I am now going to mention some key tips that you should have in mind whenever you're trying to draw pretty much anything realistically. Number 1 is to take your time choosing or producing a great quality picture. Number 2 is to realize that value is more important than color. Number 3 is to steer clear of outlines. When you're trying to render something realistically, you shouldn't leave behind any visible lines. What separates one element from another in realism is a difference in values. Number 4 is to develop a wide variety in values, including highlights, midtones, and shadows, and make sure that for the most part there are gradual transitions between them. Number 5 is to train yourself to constantly observe your image throughout the drawing process. Number 6, related to number 5, is to draw what you see and not what you think things look like. And my last tip number 7, is going to be to embrace the subtleties. So stay away from stark shapes or lines that you really don't need. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you found it helpful and that you go and try to draw some eyes for yourself. I'm going to make sure to leave some links to past drawing videos that I have uploaded at the end of this one so you can go and check them out. I would absolutely love to hear from you in the comment section below. Let me know which facial feature you find most difficult so I can make sure to take notes and make a video in the future about it. I'm always listening to you guys and I really want to help you out, so never hesitate reaching out to me through here, through my website at ericalancaster.com, or through any social media channel of your preference. I'd really appreciate a like if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next Friday.